Welcome to the Call to Worship podcast, where we look at all 188 Bible verses about worship. I'm your host, Craig Michael Davis, and I want to invite you to join me on my journey of worshiping God daily for 1 year. Over the next year, we'll look at all 188 Bible verses on worship. And I promise you that if you stick with me on this journey, God will radically transform your life. Now, the very first time our word worship appears in the Bible is in Genesis 22. If you have the devotional Call to Worship, you can follow along with me. So I'm going to back up to Genesis 22, 1 through 5. It says, "After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, 'Abraham,' and he said, 'Here I am.' He said, 'Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love.'" See, God knows our heart. He knows what we love most. He says, "And go to the land of Moriah and offer him there," that is Isaac, Abraham's son, "as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you." So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for a burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you." Now, Abraham was 100 years old when God gave him this son Isaac to carry on his legacy. God promised in Genesis 21:12, "For through Isaac shall your offspring be named." Now, could you imagine having a child at 100? God has so much planned for your life, but you are the limiting factor. In fact, Ray Kroc founded McDonald's at age 52. John Pemberton invented Coca-Cola at age 55. And Harlan Sanders founded KFC at age 65. What could God do in your life if only you'd let him? Now, can you picture the scene? God tells Abraham to sacrifice his only son whom he loved. In the first instance of worship in the Bible, we see a picture of Christ. The story of Isaac foreshadows God's willingness to sacrifice his only son for us. Now, what has God asked you to sacrifice lately? And do you have the faith to carry out the sacrifice? See, Abraham didn't hesitate when God told him to sacrifice Isaac. He got up, got on his donkey, and went to the mountain that God had instructed him to go to. Abraham knew that he was coming back with his son, even if God had to resurrect him from the dead. See, in Hebrews 11, 17 through 19, we see by faith, Abraham, when put to the test, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promise was ready to offer his only son, of whom it was said, "Through Isaac descendants shall bear your name." He reasoned that God was able to raise even from the dead, and he received Isaac back. Now, is your faith that strong that you believe God at his word no matter what it will cost you? For Abraham, it was going to cost him everything. So what does he do? Verse 5 says, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship." See, when Abraham is asked to give up everything, he chooses to worship God. In what could have been the darkest moment of his life, he trusts what God said, that he will carry out what he said he would. What would you do if God asked you to sacrifice everything? What would your life be like if you sacrificed everything to God? Maybe he's asking you to give up a career for him. Whatever it is, I can guarantee you that he has something better for you on the other side, even if you can't see it yet. Do you have faith that he has something better for you in the end? See, when God calls you to something, he always calls you into a deeper relationship with him. And worship should naturally flow out of that calling. How you view God is directly proportional to how you view worship. If you've never seen worship done right, it's going to be difficult for you to grow closer to God. Now, the word worship in Hebrew is shachach, meaning to bow down or prostrate, lying stretched down on the ground with your face downward. So what does worship look like in your life? Are you afraid to raise your hands in worship or even lie flat on your face? Where do you worship? Are you distracted or do you find a quiet place? Do trials lead you towards God or away from him? And what does worship mean to you? Is it sacrificing everything if God asks you to? Take some time today to fill in the response question in your devotional. What does worship mean to you? Then find a quiet place to worship God on your own. Once you're done, make sure to fill in your very first bubble on the 366 days of worship habit tracker on the first page of your devotional. If you still need a copy of Call to Worship, I'll leave a link in the description so you can pick up a copy and join us in our 1 year journey of worshiping God daily.